The Bucks snap their 8-game road losing streak and now target back-to-back wins for the first time in 2 months. We check in on the Christmas vibes coming up next on today's Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to Locked On Bucks. I am Justin Garcia. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day, each and every day. Today's episode of Locked On Bucks is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. If you're new here, you can hear me on the Bucks Radio Network each and every game. And she's not with us today, but you can find Camille's work on the Locked On NBA show. Every month, you can join her coverage on Locked On NBA Game Night and the Technical Foul podcast as well. We thank you for not only making this your first listen of the day, but for also helping Locked On, the #1 sports podcast network in the industry. The Bucks finally win on the road. We mentioned before the game they hadn't won since that win in Dallas against the Mavericks, November 10th. Like, we are rapidly approaching 2 months since the last road win. They checked that box off. Now next in the chain of command here for the Bucks is to win back-to-back game for the first time in will be 2 months. You got to go back to October 26th and 28th since the last time they pieced together consecutive wins, and it felt a little tenuous at times tonight. Bucks raced out to what was at its most a 25-point lead. But then in the fourth quarter, Indiana goes on a bit of a run to start things off. Get that Ethan Thompson jumper that knocked the margin down to single digits. And I'm sure most Bucks fans, if not all, were starting to sweat pretty heavy there. But the dynamic duo in this one was Kevin Porter Jr. and Ryan Rollins. They teamed up for a big basket that pushed the margin back to double figures, and the Bucks would not look back from there. So Rollins comes up with 23 points. 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and a goose egg, 0 on the turnovers, 10 of 15 shooting. Kevin Porter Jr., 24 points to lead the team, 5 assists, a team high, 1 turnover. And I know at times it can come off as more critical than it's intended to be when we talk about the turnovers and key in on that with Kevin Porter Jr., but it's imperative that this team reduce those greatly, ideally eliminate them because of what they're up against. And, you know, you go back to the true shot attempts that we've talked about here on this very show, where the Bucks currently rank. They've gotten better in that regard. They are now number 3, third worst, I should say. So number 28 in terms of the difference, the discrepancy in their true shot attempts versus what the opponent is getting. And when you look at the numbers for the season as a whole here, the issue has not actually been the Bucks' opponent shooting and the possessions that they're getting. The issue for the Bucks has been theirs. They are the pack in terms of opponent true shot attempts per game, but their true shot attempts. So we talked about this with Frank. Your field goals plus the formula of field goals plus free throw attempts times 0.44. You add those two numbers together, that's your true shot attempts. The Bucks are getting up the second fewest in the league on a nightly basis. And it's a number of things that contribute to that. A couple areas they're getting better in. One they have not been for the most part, and that is turnovers. Turnovers, for the most part, were better tonight. They were great in the first half with just 4 of those turnovers, but as the game progressed, 11 in the second half, Pacers scored 11 points off of turnovers. All 11 of those came in the second half. But the Bucks are starting to win the margins more consistently, and tonight it really helped in the result in leading you to that victory. They outscored Indiana in the paint. They were basically even in turnovers and points off of turnovers. And you'd love to cut down on the 15 number, but you were really good in the first half at protecting the basketball against a Pacers team that doesn't turn it over, but they also don't force a lot of turnovers Offensive rebounds, it wasn't a great offensive rebounding game for either team. When we look at the rebounding rates here, I think they were both around 18, 15%. But the Bucks did a lot with their reloads. 18 second chance points to just 5 for the Indiana Pacers. So when you get that, when you get, the even points off of turnovers, winning in the paint, neither team really shot it all that well from 3, but the Bucks are very good on their 2-point attempts, and they won the possession battle here in that regard. You're starting to see things improve for this group. The defense has been very good, especially the last 5 games. I believe they are the number 5 rated defense. Small sample size alert if you want to sound off the alarm there. They're number 5. And we talked about this, after the Timberwolves game. That was another game where your defense played well enough for you to win. It's just finding some of these things offensively. And tonight, that was Ryan Rollins and Kevin Porter Jr., and that was more than enough to lead you to this victory, to snap the 8-game road losing streak, and get a much-needed win on a night where basically all of the league was playing. I think it was just the Celtics and Warriors, the only 2 teams that were off tonight, with all teams not playing on Christmas Eve. So there's potential for a lot of movement in the Eastern Conference standings. We joked on yesterday's show, too, that the Bucks are a couple of games away from being a couple of games away. These next 6, potentially 7 games may be the recipe to get you there. So more on that coming up a little bit later on today's show. There was another injury, unfortunately, for the Bucks, but more on that backcourt. Ryan Rollins, Kevin Porter Jr., what you have there. And we do also need to touch on another return to Indiana for Myles Turner and the reception that he was met with, and thoughts on Myles Turner's overall play as well. So we'll get into all of those things on a Victory Wednesday here as the Bucks finally win on the road and go into Christmas with a victory. We'll get into the Myles Turner piece of it all coming up after this on today's episode here of Locked On Bucks. But it's time now to talk to you about our friends over at Prize Picks. The holiday season is here. It's one of the best times for sport. Bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes in every sport going on. It all happens at once. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is Prize Picks. Prize Picks, the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. You just pick more or less on at least 2-player projections. Lock in your lineup. You're in the game. It's simple. It's fast. Available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Prize Picks has added an extra layer of excitement to the holiday sports schedule. You create a lineup. It takes less than a minute. The app makes the whole process smooth and intuitive. Even an early payout feature, that's a great bonus, especially this time of year. When your lineup starts strong, you may get the option to cash out early. So download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. So Myles Turner in this one. 10 points, did get to double figures in scoring, but a rough night in terms of the efficiency. And it felt, especially in the early going, Myles was really pressing. 1 of 8 on threes. I believe he missed his first 6 3-point attempts in this game, just 4 of 14 from the field, 6 rebounds. Did block 3 shots. It kind of disappeared from his game, but finished with just 10 points in a rough return to Indianapolis. I don't know if it came through on, if you listened, shouts to you. If you listened to the radio broadcast, I know it didn't. I don't know if it came through on the TV broadcast, but the reception from Myles when the lineups were introduced, it wasn't as bad as it was the first time that he made his return to Indiana, and rightfully so, as you would assume. That was November 3rd, so nearly 2 months ago. That was the first time for Pacers to really get it out of Pacers fans, to get it out of their system and let Myles Turner have it. But it did seem like in the game itself, in those minutes that, Myles Turner would touch the ball, The boos were louder in those moments than I remember being them the first time he went to Indiana. And I don't know if that's something that impacted him, but we've talked about this on recent shows. And I think it really showed tonight as well. I still very much believe in Myles Turner. But I still believe very strongly the issue that we are currently seeing is the utilization of Myles Turner and whether or not he's being put in, frankly, a position to succeed here in the way that you're utilizing him, where you're getting him the ball, how you're getting him the ball. I don't remember if this was on yesterday's show or if this was an off-the-air conversation that the three of us had, me, Frank, and Camille, as we made our annual pilgrimage to Rocky Rococo as a trio and enjoyed some lunch. And it was either in that conversation or on the show, but we talked about Myles dunks. 4% of his shots this year have been dunks. It was 9% last year in the last couple of years. I think he had, prior to the Packers game, 8 dunks. It was, I believe, 60 that he had a year ago. So he's on pace for basically a third of the dunk attempts and dunk that's put up consistently throughout his career by the numbers too. Myles Turner was a pretty good role man last year, especially with the Indiana Pacers. Now, one of the things that's difficult for us to quantify is how much of those looks had to do with playing next to Tyrese Haliburton and having a guy like Haliburton getting you the ball and getting you the ball in specific spots. That we don't know. But it also kind of, going back to what we said about Rollins and KPJ and how good those two guys were, it also just reinforces the minutes that you need from those guys. Like if there's one consistent message we've heard from Doc Rivers through most of this process, and especially without Giannis, it's been, we got to find some things. We're going to have to find a silver lining here and find some of these things that work in our minutes without Giannis, because they have frankly been a disaster so far this season. That in itself is the reason why you need to see Ryan Rollins playing heavy minutes. And Ryan Rollins tonight, 30 minutes, I don't know how much of that had to do with Gary Trent Jr. leaving the game in the second quarter and not returning. And who knows what that means for his status Friday night in Memphis against the Grizzlies. I don't know how much of it was that or how much of it was Ryan Rollins was really good tonight. But it doesn't matter how we got there. What matters is that we got there, and that's what we need to continue to see. Because, again, if we learned anything last year, as important as, or as unimportant, I should say, as, who's starting and worrying about that, opposed to, well, who's playing more minutes and who's closing games is, oftentimes, it's not rocket science to see why. Your starters are the guys that are going to play the most minutes. And if we learned anything last year, you have to play your best players. It goes without saying, and it's not anything we should be discovering. But you got to play your best players. You got to play them together, and you got to play them the most minutes. Ryan Rollins and Kevin Porter Jr. at worst are 2 of your 5 best players. And for Myles Turner specifically, this is one of the discovery phases of this process, is to see, okay, how does this work? Who does Myles Turner pair best with? How does Ryan Rollins and Kevin Porter Jr. look? And what are some things that we learned from that? What are some things we can lean on in those minutes when there's no Giannis on the floor? How does Ryan Rollins look with Myles Turner? How does Kevin Porter Jr. look with Myles Turner? What does the two-man game look like? Where is Myles more efficient and vice versa? How does it look with Jericho Sims and Bobby Portis? These are all things we need to discover here. Myles Turner's usage rate in the minutes without Giannis on the floor has, I haven't checked what it is after the most recent 2 games, but prior to Minnesota, it was 18, 19% usage rate when Giannis was off the floor. Or I beg your pardon. It's 18% as a whole. It was 20, 21% when Giannis was off the floor. It's down to 13% when Giannis is on the floor. I get Giannis is going to dominate all of it, but need to get Myles Turner into a spot where he is finding his comfort level. A week, 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, Camille and I put the visual up there of the shot chart for Myles Turner this year versus last year, and it's jarring, right, to see the absence of mid-range shots, to see far fewer of those bubbles, makes and misses around the rim and in the paint. You just see a lot of perimeter-based shots. He's been very good throughout his career at above the break threes and the top of the key three, but this year you're seeing more and more of Myles Turner just sitting in the corner. And I think it's fair to say the numbers and that productivity, the output that you're getting statistically from Myles, has not been what you hoped or expected that it would be. I'm not saying Myles is blame-free. There's a shared blame here, and how much of it goes to his utilization and usage versus Myles, just underperforming is debatable. But I just don't think we've seen Myles Turner consistently put in a position to succeed. And frankly, it's been one of the more disappointing things in the games without Giannis, in that you figured this is what we're going to have to do. You go back to the Miami Heat game and the way they used him there and what you saw from Myles Turner, obviously you can't expect, I should say, to get that on a nightly basis. But we've seen virtually none of that since the Heat game. And it's not just, it's not just, Myles Turner has not been good. So you need to find a common ground there. And we need to figure out a way to get Myles Turner going on more than just catch and shoot three-point attempts. It was a rough game for him. I think he'll be the first to admit that as well. But I still believe in the skeleton of this team. We'll go down with the ship, I suppose. But you look at the guys we talked about to start this, Ryan Rollins and Kevin Porter Jr., there is still more good than bad in Kevin Porter Jr. As much as it can be taken as a tax and being overly critical, the turnovers are an issue that needs to be cleaned up. But still, the positives that he brings, the shot creation, his ability to decelerate his mid-range game, and just the ability to carry the offense for extended periods of time, that is far more good than the negatives of saying he's got too many turnovers and you got to cut down on that. So overall, there's a lot to like there. Ryan Rollins, we've had that same conversation. Excellent tonight. A lot to like about Ryan Rollins. I still believe that pair fits together nicely with Ryan Rollins' defensive ability, with KPJ's strength and ability defensively as a gambler, and Kevin Porter Jr. to be the more initiator type and the point guard where, as we know, Ryan Rollins is filling the role, but Ryan Rollins is a combo guard. I like those two playing together in the backcourt. Myles Turner, 29 years old, I don't think it's just gone. He has been one of the better bigs on both the floor for the last couple of years. That I still believe in what you have there, especially as you start to utilize him in the right ways, and then hopefully get Giannis back and get all of this, not hopefully get him back, but get him back and get all of this clicking at the same time is the hopefully part. That I still think there's a lot to like about that group, as disappointing as the first 29, 30 now games and the record has been. There's opportunity when he comes back because of what we're going to get into next. But the turnovers have to clean up. Second half, it was an issue. That's a big reason how Indiana got back in the game. And again, I think we mentioned this on the most recent show. They were 8th best in the league at offensive turnover rate in the month of October, 5 games, but 8th best. It dropped to 12th in the month of November. It's been 26th prior to tonight in December. That is a massive problem. You've seen a lot of movement and a lot of traction on the glass. And again, very small sample size, but the Bucks have been a top 5 defense for the last 6 games that they've played in now, and they've been much improved rebounding the ball. I believe they're 5th best at overall rebounding rates and in the top 10 in defensive rebounding. So you're starting to growth in those areas. If you can protect the ball, you can live with being a bottom 5 offensive rebounding team. If you're continuing to get better on the defensive glass and your defense is keeping you in these games, giving you an opportunity to win them while you continue to figure it out offensively. But the opportunity that is in front of this team, you're in the midst of it. This was the first of 7 straight games, potentially 8. 7 straight games against teams with a losing record. It is truly now or never for the Bucks. We'll dig into this opportunity staring them in the face coming up next on Locked On Bucks. During basketball season, there's nothing like being in the building. The energy, the crowd, the first big run that gets everyone on their feet. Fans want to be there for those moments, not stuck refreshing screens or guessing what tickets are really going to cost. That's where Game Time comes in. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage back, making it incredibly easy to score amazing tickets, fast, simple, and without the guesswork. You browse the Game Time app. It's a straightforward process. It's intuitive. It finds tickets. It takes just a few taps. You see a view from your seat. Extra helpful if you've never been in that venue before. We hear about baseball road trips. Why not make it a basketball trip and take in arenas throughout the Eastern Conference? Well, if you've never been there before, you can see exactly what the seat view is going to look like. Prices include fees up front, so the total is clear from the start. Whether it's an NBA game or another live event, everything is right there in one place. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That is LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today and get in on the action. And we thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen of the day, and also for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in the industry. If you have not done so yet, go check out our new Everydayer Club. You get access to ad-free audio episodes of this show with no ads, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. You also get an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for our listeners of Locked On Bucks. Head to the episode, or to the URL, I should say, you can find in the description of today's episode to join the Everydayer Club and sign up. Okay. 7 straight games, at least, against teams with a losing record for the Bucks. Now, you may say, hey, the Bucks also have a losing record, and that's true. But these opponents, for the most part, are beneath the Bucks even. I mean, the Memphis Grizzlies are essentially 500 by the time you play them on Friday, as they just won tonight. So Memphis is now 14-16 on the season. But these next 7 games extend into your 2 home games on New Year's Eve and the second day, your first game of January. So you got Memphis, who again, basically 500. Chicago won again. They're essentially 500 now, I believe 14-15. But then Charlotte on the road. Charlotte not too far behind you, by the way, with another win tonight. So Charlotte's 10-20. You're 12-18. They're within striking distance of you, but still 2 games back of you. The Washington Wizards, who can't get out of their own way, lost tonight to the Hornets. They're 5-23. Charlotte Hornets again. Sacramento Kings, who I believe hold the worst record in the Western Conference. And then the final, as of this moment, or that's the final, potentially the Golden State Warriors, who right now are 500. These are games you need to make up a lot of ground in. In those 7, realistically, I think you could probably circle the 31st on New Year's Eve against the Wizards when you come off of the road and say, well, maybe Giannis is back here. If not, I think maybe that Wednesday, January 7th game against the Kings, it's going to be somewhere in that range, you get the sense. But anywhere from that game until then is where you feel like Giannis is going to be making a return. I think 5-2 is what you have to shoot for. Now, you got 1, so go 4-2 in your next 6 games. And frankly, for where you sit right now, at 12-18, you go 4-2, you're 16-20. I mean, you're making some ground, but not enough. It truly does feel like 6-1 with those teams and with what waits for you after that in the January schedule. That's what you have to push for. If you can do that, go 6-1 and get to 17-19. You know, we talked about where can you be going into the new year. And similar to where Indiana was a season ago, I believe 17 and 19 is where the Pacers were after the Bucks beat them in the final game of the calendar year of 2024. And then, of course, Indiana got healthier, ultimately goes on the run. And starting January 1st, they were one of the best teams by every single metric in the league. I'm not saying the Bucks will be one of the best, but that's how you put yourself in that spot. And it's a tall task. It is a big ask to say, go 6-1. Right, for a team that was 11 and 18 coming into that stretch. Okay, win 6 of your next 7 games. But that's the position you put yourself in. It is doable with this schedule and with the opponents on the schedule. And if you can do that, then it starts to get interesting. Because again, we keep saying the Bucks are a couple of games away from being a couple of games away. Well, the Cavs did win, snapping a 5-game win streak for the New Orleans Pelicans. But the Miami Heat lose again. 3 straight losses, 2-8 in their last 10 games. The Atlanta Hawks lose again to the Bulls. 4 straight losses, 2-8 in their last 10 games. The Cavs, even with those back-to-back wins, they're 5-5 in their last 10 games. The Raptors won last night. They're just 4-6 in their last 10 games. It's just the teams at the top that have been piecing together consistently good play. The Pistons, the Knicks, and the Celtics. Those are the top 3 seeds in the East. All of those teams have won at least 70% of their last 10 games. Every other team in the East has been 500 or worse during that stretch. You can find that now and get close to 500. Then all of a sudden, you're right back in the mix where we say now you're just a couple of games out of that mix. You're 3 games back in the lost column of the Bulls, 2.5 in the standings, but 3 back in the lost column for that final spot in the play-in tournament. But here's the deal, right? That's step 1 to get to the 10 seed and get out of that group that misses the playoffs. Once you do that, it's 2 games that separates the Bulls from the 6th seed. It's 3 games when we look at the loss column that separates the Bulls from the 5 seed. And right now, the Bulls are just 3 games back of the Raptors, who are the 4 seed. So get into that mix. Get Giannis back, and then anything is possible. But you have to do it now. With this schedule that's in front of you, with 7, potentially 8 straight games against teams with a losing record, because once that ends, in Los Angeles against the Lakers, in Denver against the Nuggets, then you come home to play the Timberwolves. Then it's in San Antonio against the Spurs. In Atlanta, a big one against the Hawks. Then you come home for 3 games. But it's the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Denver Nuggets, and the Dallas Mavericks, who beat the Nuggets tonight, have been playing much, much better, led by Cooper Flagg. And you close out the month and go into early February with a road game in Philly. You get the Wizards again, but then a road game in Boston against the Celtics and another game against the Chicago Bulls. And your final games leading into the All-Star break, we're already talking about that, are 2 straight games in Orlando against the Magic, the first time you will see them this season, and then on the road in Oklahoma City against the Thunder. So once you get to mid-January, it picks up big time. So you have to make your move now. As I mentioned yesterday, we threw it out there. We are not going to have a show on Christmas Day. Camille and I are both taking the day off on Christmas Eve after this drops, and Christmas Day as well, to take a little bit of time off. The show on the day after Christmas, on Friday's episode may drop a little bit later in the day and maybe just a preview of sorts for that matchup in Memphis against the Grizzlies, and certainly catch you up on everything that happened on Christmas Day. I am going to be traveling shortly after this episode drops, and then coming back the day after Christmas, or very late Christmas evening. So it's going to be a later record than usual for the show on Friday, but we'll still get something out there to you for Friday. But that's the plan for the rest of the week. Going to be a little different next week. I don't imagine we'll have the days off with New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, especially with the Bucks playing on New Year's Eve. So we'll treat it a little bit differently, more of a normal week next week. But that's the story for this week on this show. Look, the important part too of these next couple of days is he's a very polarizing name and figure, and I get it. We can dispute the coaching ability and acumen and everything else that Doc Rivers had to say on that front about his job. But what's indisputable is the message that he gave to his team and the message that he gave to reporters as well. That the Bucks flew home after that in Indiana against the Pacers, so they're going to be able to sleep in their own beds tonight as I record this Tuesday night. And Wednesday as well on Christmas Eve. They're not going to leave for Memphis until Thursday afternoon, Christmas Day. They're leaving to go back out there, so they'll get a day and a half to spend home with their families for the holiday. And as Doc said, that's what everybody needs to do. Granted, it's provided you can do it. If you can, spend time with your family. So that's the message from Doc to the players and to all of us in the media and around the team as well. And that's our message to you guys as well. We appreciate each and every one of you for making this part of daily listen, even just stumbled onto this on a one-off here, but we appreciate each and every one of you. And by all means, if you are able to and can and have that group out there, use this time, take the opportunity to step away and spend some time with your family and those close to you, as Camille and I will be doing here for the next couple of days. Again, want to remind you about our Everydayer Club. We thank you as always for tuning in to this show today. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Bucks for all the latest episodes. We're right up to the 11th hour here. If you're in search for that absolute last gift for someone that is a big Bucks fan, or someone's even asking you, I need a last minute idea for you, you can make them, or you can get them to make you a part of the Everydayer Club. You get ad-free episodes of Locked On Bucks. You get access to the exclusive Discord server and more. You can gift subscriptions. You can find the link to sign up for it or gift a subscription to someone in the details of today's show. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever national 24/7 NBA YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make that your second listen of the day, NBA Game Night on Locked On NBA. The Bucks win in Indiana, snap the road losing streak, and now we said all I want for Christmas is back-to-back wins. We got a chance to get a late Christmas presents with back-to-back wins the day after Christmas. So hope everybody has a very, very happy, safe, and healthy holidays here. And as I said, this time to spend some time with those that matter to you, your family, and those that you love. That'll do it for today's show. Thanks as always for tuning in. I'm Frank, Camille. We all feel the same way in making this one of your first stops of the day, and all the interaction that we continue to see in the YouTube section, the live shows that we've done, the interaction that Camille and I and Frank get on social media from each and every one of you. We truly appreciate it. So we will talk to you once again after Christmas, Friday, on Locked On Bucks.